Okay, well, a lot of you don't know me, so here's my story. I remember that first time I came with Arian that one time. You guys had someone from Africa, and he goes, "Hear the testimony of Christ in my life." And I was like, man, that is awesome. So, hear the testimony of Christ in my life. My father's a retired colonel in the Marine Corps, so I grew up in a military house, and wasn't always puppy dogs and rainbows at my home. I had an older brother as well who is mechanically inclined, and I am not. So we had a lot of testosterone flowing in my home. My poor mom, bless her heart. But yeah, I learned real quick that to be gentle or kind or to be sweet was a weakness. And so I got hard real quick, and I learned how to yell. That was a love language in my home, yelling. And so if you're angry, you yell. If you're happy, you yell. If you're sad, you yell. Everybody yelled, and there was a lot of yelling. And then I married my sweet wife who had 2 older sisters and a mom. And I raised my voice, just a little bit. She said, "Why are you always yelling at me?" Like, well, you don't know what yelling is. My goodness. Okay, so, yeah, but I grew up and I wasn't very comfortable in my own skin. And so, and my home wasn't a very safe place as well, growing up. So I found all kinds of things to get myself distracted from the pain that was at home. And one of those things I found was an easy access was drugs. I got into drugs and I started dealing drugs, and it was pretty rotten. And I was feeling pretty bad about myself as well. And I got a call from a girl who I'd been dealing to, and I said, "So what do you want?" She says, "Well, I got saved and wanted to take you to church." And I was like, weird, don't know you, like, what's going on here? And she said, "No, I just, I'm sober now, I don't do that anymore." And I was like, all right, whatever. I'm sure there's someone at church I can sell some drugs to or something, And so I go to this church, and it was a charismatic church. I'd never been to anything like this in my life. There were people running up and down the aisles, and I had never seen anything like this. There were people, there's something called holy laughter. I didn't know what that was until later, but they were just laughing over here, and I was looking at this whole scene going, my goodness, this is wild, okay? And me not being comfortable in my own skin, seeing this happen in front of me, this panorama of emotional discharge was, I said, you know what? As crazy as this is, no one's pointing, no one's laughing. They have something I don't have. They're so much more comfortable in their skin than I am. And I said, you know what? They have something I don't have, and I would really like to have that. Maybe not the running up and down the aisles, but the comfortableness in my own skin. That's what I was craving. So I said, right there, I said, "Lord, if you're real, and if I haven't messed my life up too much, and if I could do anything for you, just have my brother call home tonight." Because he lived in Brenham, which is about 45 minutes away, and he came home every weekend anyways to steal food and do laundry for my parents. So he never called home. This was before cell phones, too, so it was a long distance. I knew he never called home. That's why I said it. So I said, "Lord, have my brother call home. If you want me to drop everything and follow you, I'll do whatever you want me to do, go wherever you want me to go." And so the service wrapped up, and I dropped the girl off, went home. I was actually changing clothes. This is back before cell phones, so I had a pager, and the pager was blowing up. And I was about to head out to a party, and I literally had my hand on the doorknob, and my mom says, hey, Trav's on the phone. And I look around, and it was like ice water. I was frozen. And my jaw dropped, and she hands me the phone. She goes, "Hey, Trav wants to holler at you before you go." So I pick up the phone, and he's talking about something. He goes, my car had gotten broken into earlier, so he was asking about that. And I was like, wait a second, do you usually call home like Tuesday nights or whatever night? Is this a trick that God's playing on me? What's going on here, And he goes, "No, I'd never call home. As a matter of fact, I got to let you go. It's a long distance." "I know it's long. Why are you calling?" And so I said, and he was president of the Baptist Student Ministry at Blinn Junior College. And so I said, "Look, man, I told God that if you called tonight, I would give up everything and just go wherever God wants me to go." And he goes, "Man, I've been praying for you, Doug." And I was like, whew. And so he says, "Move in with me." So that night, I threw everything away, flushed it down the toilet, and I moved up to Brenham. That night. And while I was there, I could play guitar. So while I was there, my brother was always looking for people to help lead worship. So I started to help him lead worship. And while I was there, I met a ministry team called Crosswalk. The members were Arian and this guy Andy and Joey. So I started helping them lead worship, and they were doing youth groups all over the place. And so we would do retreats and all that fun stuff. And then their pastor said, hey, if you guys are serious about the ministry, you need to go to Criswell College and get yourself an education. So I said, all right, Lord, wherever you want me to go, let's go. So we all moved up to Dallas and went to, got our undergrad at Bible College. And then, while I was there, I heard about this seminary called Dallas Theological Seminary. And a door opened up for me to go there, so I got my degree there. And while I was there, I met my wife, and we got, well, she wasn't there, but through a friend, I met her, and we got married. And I got a job at this Episcopal church. I'd never stepped foot in an Episcopal church in my life. And there was a guy with a collar, father, this, that, and so on. I was there for 2 years. I loved it. And then I got a job at a Methodist church, and wasn't a Methodist, but I even told them that I'm not a Methodist. And they said, no, we want someone that can teach the Bible. And I said, well, I can do that. So I was there as an associate for about 3 years. And then, we weren't a Methodist, we weren't an Episcopalian, so we knew that there was a shelf life to those jobs. And when that had come to an end, Maggie and I moved up to Virginia and tried to start a life up there. And then God called us back to Houston, and we started going to church with Arian and his family. And that's about the time I met Scott. So that's my story. And I love it because it's, for me, I look back on that and I see God's presence in my life. I see I can look back and see the breadcrumbs and string it together and say, I'm not here by accident. I'm not here by chance. There's a bigger purpose going on here. And so as I look backwards, I can tell that there's a trajectory for my life, and it gives me hope going forward. And especially sometimes in the middle of something that's very difficult, it gives me hope for today. Okay? So during all my time, not being an Episcopal, not being a Methodist, I had to really figure out, what have I been called to do? Have I been called to be a priest? Or have I been called to be, in the Methodist church, it's a deacon or an elder. It's a big deal. And I knew I had been called to the ministry. I knew I had not been called to either of those denominations. And so I did a lot of great ministry while I was there, and I loved it. But what I found out was I do enjoy God's people, the flock. And so God has revealed a couple things to me, and which basically what ministry is an overflow. God blesses ministers with an overflow. That's why Scott can get up and talk to you guys for an hour every Sunday. And he loves it. He's scratching an itch in him, although you may not always like it, but he is enjoying it very much because God gives ministers an overflow. And so I've got a little bit of an overflow that I'd like to share with you, and which we like to think as the story, okay, God's story. All right? So we're going to go through this pretty quickly. So I threw some slides together so that you could follow along, okay? The first thing that God did was he gave us Adam and Eve. And so there was a fall. We all know the story of the fall. But immediately after the fall, he gave us something called the proto-evangelium. It's a big theological word. But it was the gospel way back then. And it's where he was telling Adam and Eve, I'm going to strike the devil's head and he will strike my heel. So a lot of theologians believe that this is the first gospel. So the gospel, that's the Greek translation, okay? And that's how you say it in Greek. If you guys want to try it, there it is, okay? But it means good news, okay? So this is God's story. This is God's good news. Now, we all know what that is. We all may have been grown up in church or not grown up in church, so we all have an idea. But biblically speaking, I would like to present to you what the good news is, okay? So let's start with Adam and Eve. Okay, this is back in Genesis. We all know that. So sin enters the world. There's a perfect situation, and, I have my theology teacher says, God created this garden, this perfect situation where everything is wonderful. And he says, guys, go do whatever you want. There's nothing wrong. You can do whatever you want, except for this one thing. Don't go eat this from this tree. And he goes, 5 minutes later, they're standing over by the tree going, what's going on with this? You know, when I was a youth pastor, the first thing, if I wanted something destroyed, all I had to do was put a note on it, do not touch. It's in our nature, and we inherit that from Adam and Eve. It's in our nature to, why can't we do this? Okay, so sin enters the world through Adam and Eve, and sin gets very bad. It gets rampant. It gets so bad that God says, I can't do this anymore. Well, then you have Cain and Abel. We all know that. But God says, it's so bad, we can't do it anymore. It's so bad that I've got to start over with one guy, the only righteous guy, okay, Noah. So then God uses Noah and he rebuilds the people, and we repopulate, and then we have the Tower of Babel. But then the next major character of the Bible is Abraham. Abraham is an incredible guy, and it was counted faith that God said, hey, I want you to leave everything and go to this place. It's a land of milk and honey, and I'm going to bless you, and your descendants will grow and multiply, and you'll have descendants like the sands on the shore. And so Abraham says, ooh, let's go, man, let's do it. So he leaves. And then God promises him this family. And he says, okay, I'm going to bless you with descendants. So he blesses him with, I think it's 3 things. He says, Abraham, I'm going to bless you with a great name. I'm going to bless you with land. And I'm going to bless you with descendants. Okay? So Abraham's wondering where the land is. He's wondering where his great name is. He's wondering where his descendants are, and you know, all this stuff. And honestly, if you read that account of Abraham, he doesn't really get any of that until even years after he's passed away. Years after he's passed away, okay? But God's promises are still being fulfilled because he's promised, okay? So God may promise us things, but that doesn't always mean we'll be able to see exactly what it is in our time. All right? So, God finally gives him the heir through which all these descendants will come. It's Isaac. And then Isaac has 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. You guys remember the story where he sells his birthright? The firstborn, Esau, he's out, and Jacob comes, but God's already told his wife, hey, look, I'm going to bless the younger. He will get the blessing. But Isaac says, I don't want to do that. I want to bless the older one. So instead of letting God do it, they manipulate this treachery, and they fool Dad. Here he is, blind, blessing the wrong boy. And so the blessing goes from Abraham to Isaac. It skips over Esau, the firstborn, and goes to Jacob. And Jacob is wrestling with an angel. Fast forwarding here. And he says, I'm not going to let you go, angel, until I get this blessing. And so the angel changes his name from Jacob to Israel. Okay, so now the blessing is starting to take form. And this guy has a bunch of kids. He's got all these sons. Okay? And out of all of these sons, you have the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? You guys seeing the story here? Okay, coming together. Well, one of his sons was his favorite, and it was this guy. And everybody knew he was his favorite, and he had this awesome coat, and it was many colors, and it was Joseph, and all his brothers were very jealous of him, so they sold him into slavery, and he goes down to Egypt. And he tells them that, they go and tell their dad, hey, look, you lost your favorite son, oh, well, sorry, and, they lie to him, and it's a big deal. And so innocent, sweet Joseph, man, the story of Joseph, guys, is so incredible. It parallels Christ so much. He's innocent, God's called him, and he suffers, but he stays true to God's integrity, and God blesses him as a result. And then he goes from the bottom and he raises him up to the right hand of the king, just like in the future, okay, with Christ. Joseph's story, incredible story. So Joseph becomes this great guy. He's the right-hand man to the king, the Pharaoh of Egypt, the strongest, most powerful nation on the planet. And there's this giant famine going on. The whole world is hungry. But Joseph, because of his wisdom and God's blessed him, God says, hey, look, here's do this, and I'll give you all this grain, and here do this, and I'll give you all these cattle and all that. So everybody knows Egypt's the place to go if you want food. So you have Isaac and his family still in Canaan. And they hear about Egypt has all this food, so they come down to Egypt. And Joseph does this story, or it's a great story. You know, he does a revealing of who he is, and then he says, man, guys, I've got all the stuff here. Come down, move down to Egypt during this famine. I'll take care of you. I'll give you the choice land. So they're like, man, let's go. Joseph's the king. Yeah, he's over there. Let's go. So they all go down to Egypt, and they stay there, and he gives them the best land, and they start to grow and multiply. And there's a whole bunch of them. In the beginning of the book of Exodus, where are we at? Yeah, Egypt. So the beginning of the book of Exodus, you have this story of a Pharaoh who doesn't know the story of Joseph. And so he doesn't know who Joseph is, but he just looks around, and he comes Pharaoh, and he goes, who are all these Jews? Man, there's more of them than there's us. We got to do something about this because they're going to take over Egypt. So what does he do? He enslaves them. And so for 400 years, God's people are in slavery in Egypt. And so after 400 years, God finally hears the cries. The cries are so loud for the suffering of his people. God says, all right, I'm going to raise up a savior, someone to get you out of the slavery. Okay? Do we know who this is? Who is it? Moses. Very good. So there's Moses, one of the most biggest characters of the Bible of all, outside of Christ. This guy wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. He has the 10 Commandments. I mean, you know, this guy had the glory of God. He had to veil his face because he was in God's presence. And this is big time. This guy, I mean, he was huge. So he leads the people out of Egypt, okay? And then, because of their grumbling, because they were whining, God says, that's it. I'm going to kill them all. And I'm going to start over with you, Moses. This is up on the mountain. Remember, they're down and they've got a golden calf down there. And God says, I'm going to kill them all and start over with you. Okay? The same God that did that with Noah. And instead of the whole world, he goes, these people, I just did these 10 miracles. I just saved them out of the slavery of Egypt. And now they're doing this. And you got to be kidding me. He's like, Noah, Moses, if you knew what was going on down there, you would agree with me. And Moses says, look, Lord, just think about it. You've invested so much in these people. You know, change your heart. Turn your heart away from this wrath. And God says, okay, because of you, I will allow them to live. And that's the power of prayer, by the way. Because this is the same God that said, let there be light, and there was. Same God that said, let there be an expanse between the heavens and the earth, and there was. When he speaks, that is history making. And he said, I'm going to kill them and start over with you. Same God. Decision was already made. And Moses says, hold on. Okay? So that is the power we have. We can go to God and we can pray and we can change God's heart on things. That is huge. Okay? So, they live, but he says they're not going into my land. Okay? They're too whiny and grumbly, so they wander for 40 years. But during this time, this is really, really cool. During this time they're wandering, God speaks to Moses. This is where we get the first 5 books of the Bible. This is where he gives us the law. This is where he gives us all that stuff in the tabernacle and what the tabernacle is supposed to look like. And they start this thing. It's beautiful. It's called the Day of Atonement. Let me see here. Well, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we talk about the Day of Atonement, I wanted to talk to you guys real quickly about justice. God came down from earth when he created Adam and blew his image into us, his mysterious image, and gave us life. Part of that is all of us, all humans have a sense of right and wrong. Okay? All of us. And kids often say, when it's not right, what do they say? That's not fair. That's not fair. And when it's not fair, it seems that the scales of justice are off. So you want to what? Make it right. When something evil happens, when something horrible has been perpetrated, you feel a sense of injustice. The scales are knocked off, and you want to make it right. Okay, there's a sense that you want to make it right. We get that from God. Animals don't have that. dogs, cats, and kittens. Then we are made in God's image. We have that, all of us, okay? Some societies call it whatever, but it's given to us from God, okay? We all share a sense of right and wrong. Okay, so that being said, here we have the Day of Atonement. It's in Leviticus 16, and it's very long and very boring. So here's the short version. The high priest is allowed to go into the Holy of Holies, which no one's allowed to go in. No one is allowed to go in the Holy of Holies except for the high priest, this one guy, one time a year. That's it. And what he does in there, he goes to the Lord and he slaughters an animal and he says, Lord, here's for the nation, the whole nation of Israel, remember Jacob's descendants. Here's for the whole nation to appease this wrath from you, Lord. Is this okay? And God says, all right, you guys got another year on credit, okay? I used to do this, credit. Who knows what this is, credit? Now it's this, right? Here's credit, okay. So on credit, you get one more year on credit, okay? But the idea behind this is, what are we saved from? What are we saved from? We are saved to a new creation. We are saved to a life with God. We are saved to a life outside of sin. We are saved to a new thing. But what we are saved from is God's wrath. God's wrath. And I know that's not a popular thing to preach, but let me tell you this. If I sinned against Maggie, if I committed adultery against her, who would I need a Savior? I mean, I would need a Savior from what? From her wrath. If you put it in context, if I'm the one offending, I'm the one that needs a Savior. If I'm the offender, I need to be saved from the wrath of... And would you blame her? Right? Because of the scales. Okay? Some of us have felt the sting of betrayal. Some of us have felt that sting before. And it stings. It knocks those scales way off. And as a result, we want to make it right. I can tell you, in counseling, I've seen it on the faces of couples who are currently going through adultery and trying to reestablish their trust in their marriage, and they want to honor God, but I can see it. The one that was that didn't commit the adultery, the one that's innocent, they want blood. Whether it's their spouse or who they were treating, they want payment. I mean, would you blame them? It's painful. And so also God hates sin, guys. God hates sin. The wages of sin is what? Because God hates sin. He hates it so much. So we need a Savior from God's wrath. So once a year, the high priest goes in and he says, here's another year. You've appeased my wrath, bought on credit. Okay? So then, this whole thing, this annual thing, is not the way it's supposed to be. It's what was working. It was sufficient, but it's not the way that it was supposed to be. But here, out in the wilderness, wandering for 40 years, it was established. And it went from the tabernacle, and then they went from the tabernacle, and they entered into the land back, and Joshua was leading them. Okay, so we got Joshua. Joshua led them, and then after Joshua established them there, was the time of the judges. And we know, Ehud and Shamgar and all those guys that led the nation of Israel for a while. And then they said, oh man, we want to, then the high Samuel was the best one. That guy. Oh man. There's a whole 2 books about this guy. 1st, 2nd Samuel. This guy's awesome. He's one of my favorites. Then they said, the nation of Israel says, well, everybody else has got a king, so we want a king. So God says, all right, here, have a king. So then you have the time of the kings. And all throughout this thing, still the Day of Atonement is going on, and the credit is building up and building up. Okay? And we got Saul, David, Solomon, and then after Solomon's sin, the kingdom splits. We have a north kingdom and a southern kingdom, the king of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. And then God goes silent for about 400 years. God doesn't say anything. called the intertestamental period. Is another big theology word for you. Intertestamental period, God doesn't say anything. But still, there's a lot of stuff happening. Okay, in between those 400 years, all this, Rome was being built, and there's a lot of history that happened there, but it's extra biblical, outside the Bible. So then, the very next big character of the Bible, anybody know? Someone's looking at them. Someone's cheating. He's just that good. John the Baptist, okay? So God raises up John the Baptist, okay? And over this story, can you feel a drumbeat? Starting with Adam and Eve and that proto-evangelium, that first gospel, and how everything got knocked off kilter when that sin entered the world, and God trying to make a way. And that Day of Atonement, when we could go into the temple or the tabernacle and sacrifice, it was sufficient, but it wasn't good. It wasn't what God wanted. It was good for that time. And so God says, enough of this. There's someone very important coming. Someone so important, I need someone to lead the way. The one who is more powerful than I is coming after me. I am not worthy to stoop down and untie the thong of his sandals. I have baptized you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. Some translations, he baptize you with fire. I love that. John the Baptist came. He says, I'm going to raise the valleys and lower the mountains and make a path straight. For who? For Jesus. So Jesus comes on the scene. And among the things that Jesus did, he did so much. He did miracles, he walked on water, he healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, gave strength to the lame, did incredible things. But he came to suffer and die. So on the cross, he's on the cross, he says a couple things while he's up there. Right before he dies, he utters this word here, tetelestai. Tetelestai. I've been giving you a couple theology words, okay? This isn't a theology word, okay, per se. It is more of a financial term. So if I lived in Canaan, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, and I did business in Egypt, and I went down to Egypt and I saw a camel that I really wanted, and I'd go down there and say, well, this camel's going to cost you 100 pieces of silver. It was like, all I have is 20. So, okay, here's 20. So they chisel in the thing. Okay, Doug paid 20 pieces of silver. So then I go back to Canaan, come back, here's 20 more pieces of silver. You want to invite him in? Yeah. And we're back. Hey, all right. So, here's 20 more pieces of silver. So they chisel in 20 more pieces until it's all the way paid. And at the end of the receipt, tetelestai. Paid in full. So what Christ was saying when he was hanging on the cross, he said, paid in full. All the debt that had been accruing over the years from the Day of Atonement, all of the debt that had been building up year after year, all of the sin that was happening right then and there, and all the future sin that was coming, paid in full. Is that good news? I think so. That is gospel right there. That is good news. And the entire story of the Bible led up to this moment, which is why, and the angels knew it, which is why when in Bethlehem the Savior was born, the angels were having a huge party. No one knew. These three guys knew. The angels were having a ball. This is the greatest thing that the world's ever known has just been born. We had no idea. But they knew. They knew how big it was. And now, we know. Okay? We know the gospel story now. We know how important it is to know. And Tony Evans gives us a metaphor. He says, in the future, something big is coming out. In the future, something big. The end of the story. Where Christ comes back again and it won't be in a manger. It'll be a big deal. And he says, just like if a big movie is going to be shown, they want to tantalize you to go see the movie. They give you a preview. And each one of us in here today is a preview of things to come. My story. That girl that invited me to church, you know what her story was? Hey, come to church, I got saved. I got saved, I'm sober now, come to church. And I owe that girl a big hug. I never would have met my wife. I wouldn't be here today if someone hadn't come to me and said, I got saved, come to church. That's huge, guys. That gave me enough hope to put one foot in front of the other and show up. That's huge. We get to be the preview. We get to be what others see, so that when that future glory comes, they go, man, this guy had it. You guys got me preaching here. I forgot where I was. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I do want to leave you guys with this. You know my story now. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. I've done a lot of ministry, and I've been behind the curtain, so to speak, and been on a lot of committees and stuff. And so I know the real deal when I see it. And I remember the first time I met Scott, I said, this guy's the real deal. And he has a real shepherd's heart, and you are very lucky to have him. And so there's that, okay? I know it's a sermon, so I'm not supposed to say this, but does anybody have any questions?